Welcome back to the Pam and Peggy Show. I'm Pam Wagner, and with me is Lyle Rebbeck, the producer of the Medicine Hat Jazz Fest. Lyle, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me, Pam.
It's great to be able to talk to you about the Jazz Festival, where it's come from. This is 18 years this year. So I thought it'd be great just to let people know a little bit more about the jazz scene in Medicine Hat. And you've been with it from the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, 24 years ago is when the Jazz Society began, and it was a few of us from the college. I can say we're all classical background musicians who were developing an interest in jazz and had put together an ensemble. And for some reason, we decided to go to Edmonton to the first ever Jazz Works Jazz Festival at the Yardbird Suite. And we had a road trip. We had a blast. And so we came back, you know, and you can imagine what that's like. We're on the road and we're going, oh, so great. How can we bring this, you know, to Medicine Hat? So we came up with the idea of a jazz society, and Tommy Banks came down to play the first concert ever in the basement of the Legion. Tommy's going to be back at Jazz Fest again this year. And that first concert we had, about 250 people came out. It was like the city said, right on, we're with you.
Yeah,
we'd like that.
Yeah.
So we did year-round programming for 6 years, and then we had the idea of a festival. And we started with a little 2-day weekend and one visiting musician and some local musicians.
Yeah.
And it's grown from there to, you know, 8 days and over 100 musicians and over 50 concerts. So the idea of the jazz festival really caught on.
Yeah, yeah. It's become a real community, part of our community, something people look forward to and participate in as audience, volunteers.
Yeah, and it's an interesting phenomena too. It's maybe a bit of an anomaly. You know, why jazz?
Yeah, especially here in the West.
Right.
Yeah, so are people excited about hearing jazz?
Well, you know, a few years ago I came up with a slogan that said, you don't have to be a jazz fan to be a fan of Jazz Fest.
True, true.
And I think that was the time when we started to realize that the music was the power and the catalyst, but the event was a festival.
Right.
And festivals are about community getting together.
Yeah.
It's about going out with your kids or meeting up with the neighbors and family and going to an event, meeting new people. It's a celebration, right? It's sitting on a patio. It's hearing a band on the street outside Tim Hortons. It's going to the top of a parkade, for goodness sake, and having a party.
Yeah, with hundreds of people.
With hundreds of people. So it's all of that celebration. Yeah. Now, I personally believe in the power of jazz music as the catalyst.
Right.
I think it could be, you know, any number of other styles, but jazz has that depth of interest, and yet it can be very melodic and very easy to listen to. So, you know, anybody who says, well, you know, I don't like jazz music, I can almost guarantee you if you took that person and you set them in that club and there's a glass of wine on the table and the lights come down and there's somebody at the piano and there's a bass player and there's a sax player and it starts, they're going to go, oh, well, if that's jazz, I like that.
Yes, absolutely.
I didn't know that's what you meant. You know, it's an atmosphere that's created. And then when you start to realize that 95% of what those musicians are doing at that moment is spontaneous.
Yes.
It's that improvised side of jazz. That's the intriguing part of it.
Yeah.
Where you start with that known melody, and then it's like singing in the shower. Right?
Yeah.
You don't know what's coming out. It's a melody that's in your head. You're pulling it out.
Yeah. The fun thing I love about singing jazz is what I get from the other musicians who are playing, and an idea I may not have had before.
Yes.
And so you throw it back and forth. Then it becomes very interactive with the musicians on it.
It really is. It's very organic. And I think you can see that in the musicians as they're doing something and all of a sudden they go, and they look over and they go, and then they play something back. And you know what? The audience can be involved in that too.
Absolutely.
And as the audience listens and they go, or they clap or something, and the musicians go, okay, these guys are listening, they're with me.
And there's the energy. Medicine Hat has wonderful audiences.
We do. After 24 years, we're told that all the time. And I think it's that they come and they listen.
Yes.
And I've played so many places in other cities where there's people listening, but there's a lot of talking going on. It's a social event. We're getting up and going for a drink and so on. Here, people really come to listen, and they're, you know, hanging on every note. And so that's really encouraging to the musicians. It's a wonderful atmosphere.
It sure is. Well, we are very, very lucky to have you and the other volunteers and workers and musicians who make this event, and this is so much a part of our community. So thank you so much, Lyle, for taking the time to share that with us. And I know there's music going on all year. You don't have, if you miss Jazz Fest, there's other things to do, and the Jazz Society does exist all year round.
Yes. Yes, and there's so many clubs now that are doing live music year-round, and that's an invaluable part of our community, and we need to support that.
Yeah, absolutely, makes it better and better. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Lyle, and we look forward to all the music that you and your colleagues will make over the next years.
Yeah.
So, this has been Lyle Rebbeck with Medicine Hat Jazz Society. I'm Pam Wagner with the Pam and Peggy Show. Following the break, we're going to talk to Judy Morris with Friends of the Monarch.